The night shift on orbital station Helios was always quiet. The hum of the air recyclers, the soft blue glow of the data panels, and the distant rhythm of cargo drones docking and leaving. It was almost peaceful. Almost. Lieutenant Marcus Hale liked the quiet. After 5 years of serving on Helios, he had learned to enjoy solitude. He was a technician, not a hero. Heroes got medals. Technicians made sure the heroes' ships didn't explode when they hit the jump drive. He was adjusting a diagnostic relay when the door to his quarters hissed open. No one knocked on Helios. Doors only opened if you had clearance or a death wish. And then she was there. A woman stood in the doorway, her frame outlined by the hallway light. Her suit wasn't standard issue. It was dark, flexible armor marked with silver lines that shimmered faintly like circuits. Her eyes gleamed with mischief. "Well?" she said, grinning. "Say something." Marcus froze, spanner in hand. His mind scrambled through security protocols. Who are you?" She stepped inside without waiting for permission. "Someone who needs your help." "Security is going to have a field day," Marcus muttered. "You can't just walk into a restricted tech bay." She looked around the room like it belonged to her. "Relax, Lieutenant Hale. If security shows up, they'll only slow us down." Marcus blinked. "You know my name?" "Of course. I did my homework." Her tone was teasing, but there was something serious beneath it. "You worked on the Pathfinder project, right? The human jump prototype?" He frowned. "That's classified. So that's a yes," she said quickly. "Good. Because the galaxy's about to need it again." Marcus set down his tool and crossed his arms. "Start explaining before I call station command." The woman sighed dramatically, then tapped a small device on her wrist. The lights flickered and a hologram appeared between them. A swirling image of a blue star surrounded by dark, jagged ships 3 days ago, she said. "The Council fleet was ambushed near Epsilon Theta. The attackers weren't pirates or raiders. They moved like machines, precise, efficient, no life signs." Marcus's brow furrowed. "You're saying AI? Something worse. Autonomous warforms. Old tech, maybe pre-human era." They appeared out of nowhere, hit the fleet, and vanished. But not before broadcasting a signal. Marcus stared at the hologram. "A signal?" "To Earth." The silence stretched between them. Outside the viewport, Helios drifted quietly above the curve of Saturn, its rings glowing like ghostly fire. Marcus took a slow breath. "If that's true, why tell me? I'm an engineer, not a commander." "Because," she said, stepping closer, "you're the only one who can finish what you started." He hesitated. Pathfinder was shut down. It was too unstable. The prototype nearly tore itself apart. She smiled faintly. "Then I guess it's time to rebuild it. Because if those things come here, we'll need a way to strike first." For the next hour, Marcus listened as the stranger, who finally introduced herself as Captain Alara Voss, explained everything. She was part of the Vanguard, a deep space exploration unit officially disbanded years ago. Unofficially, they handled missions the Council didn't want public. Her team had encountered one of the warforms, a black ship unmanned but responsive as if it was thinking. When they tried to board it, the ship's systems had turned on them, wiping out most of her crew. Only Alara survived. She'd escaped with a fragment of its core, a pulsing, half-living crystal that hummed when she showed it to him. Marcus could feel static crawling across his skin just being near it. "This," she said, setting it gently on his desk, was inside the warform, and its broadcasting coordinates. Marcus leaned forward. "Coordinates to what?" Alara met his eyes. "A factory, somewhere in deep space. We think it's still building more of them." Marcus ran a hand through his hair. "You're asking me to restart a jump drive that nearly broke space-time." "I'm asking you to save Earth," she said softly. He wanted to laugh, but something in her voice stopped him. She wasn't bluffing. Hours passed. Marcus pulled up old schematics, the ones buried in encrypted archives. Alara watched him work, occasionally pacing or scanning the room with a small sensor. "Why me?" he asked again. "There are a dozen better scientists." "Because you're the only one who refused to weaponize it," she said. "That's why the Council shut you down, right?" "You said it wasn't ready for war." He frowned. "You've done your research." "I had to," she said simply. "I needed someone who still believed humans could build without destroying everything." He looked at her then, really looked. Beneath the bravado and the grin, there was exhaustion in her eyes. The kind of weight that came from losing too many people. He sighed. Fine, I'll help, but I want full transparency. No secrets, no sudden orders from the council. Ilara smiled, that same grin from the doorway. Deal. By the next morning, the lab was alive again. Screens lit up with blueprints and robotic arms began assembling components Marcus hadn't touched in years. The hum of energy filled the air like the station itself was waking up. Ilara leaned against the wall, arms crossed, watching him work. You know, she said, I didn't think you'd say yes. Neither did I, he muttered. But if what you're saying is true, we don't have much of a choice. She nodded slowly. You'll see it soon enough. What do you mean? Before she could answer, an alarm blared. The red emergency lights flashed across the room. Marcus looked up sharply. What now? Ilara's hand went to her wristcom. Security grid breach, multiple drones entering orbit. Marcus felt his stomach tighten. How many? She hesitated. Too many. The station shook. A distant explosion rattled the deck beneath their feet. Marcus grabbed the crystal from the desk and it pulsed brighter, as if reacting to the chaos outside. Ilara's expression hardened. They found us. Who? The warforms. They ran through the corridor as the alarm screamed around them. Crew members rushed to emergency stations. Out the viewport, Marcus saw flashes of light, tiny, sleek ships darting between defense satellites. The warforms looked like shards of black glass, moving faster than human eyes could follow. Helios's defense turrets opened fire, but the enemy ships weaved through the blasts with impossible precision. Ilara slammed a hand on a control panel, opening a maintenance hatch. This way. We can reach the engineering deck. Marcus hesitated. We'll never make it. Trust me, she said, grabbing his arm. I didn't come here to die. They dropped through the hatch into a narrow tunnel filled with cables and heat vents. Marcus clutched the crystal as they crawled forward. Its hum was louder now, syncing with his heartbeat. Suddenly, Ilara's wristcom flickered. A voice came through, broken by static. Captain Voss? We've detected a surge coming from your location. She froze. They're tracking the core. Marcus looked down at the glowing crystal. You mean this thing? Yes, she said grimly. It's calling them. They reached the engineering deck. Marcus threw open a panel revealing the old jump drive console, half dismantled, coated in dust. He hadn't seen it since the project was shut down. Can you get it running? Ilara asked. He nodded. Maybe, but we'll need power from the main reactor. That means going through the outer conduit. Then we move fast. Outside, another explosion rocked the hull. The sound of tearing metal echoed through the deck. Marcus's fingers flew over the console. The drive flickered to life, glowing faintly with unstable light. The hum of energy filled the air again, but this time it felt alive, hungry. Ilara handed him a power cell. Will this help? He looked at it and blinked. That's council-grade antimatter. Where did you get that? She smiled. You don't want to know. Marcus connected it. The lights brightened and the jump core stabilized for a moment. Then the reading spiked. Marcus, she asked carefully. He didn't answer. His eyes widened at the screen. It's not just reacting to power, it's syncing with the crystal. The crystal floated out of his hand, glowing white-hot. Ilara shielded her eyes. Marcus! The light filled the room and a pulse shot through the ship, spreading across every system. When the light faded, the alarms had stopped. The hum of the station had gone silent. Ilara lowered her arm. What did you do? Marcus stared at the console. I think it connected us. Connected? She asked, confused. He turned to her, his face pale. The drive just spoke to me. Ilara's voice went quiet. What did it say? Marcus swallowed hard. It said, they're coming home. The silence after the pulse was unbearable. For a few long seconds, no alarms blared, no engines hummed, just the faint buzz of the lighting grid struggling to stay alive. Marcus and Ilara stood frozen in the dim glow of the jump core chamber, staring at the floating crystal that now pulsed like a heartbeat. Ilara's voice was low. You said it spoke to you. Marcus nodded slowly, eyes fixed on the light. Not like words, more like thoughts, images. I could feel them. What did it say again? He turned toward her, his face pale under the flickering light. It said, they're coming home. Ilara frowned. Who's they? Marcus didn't answer. He didn't know. But deep down, a cold fear was crawling up his spine. Then the lights across the engineering deck snapped back on one by one. Systems began rebooting automatically, but not in the usual pattern. The computers weren't following Helios station protocols, they were following new instructions. Alara rushed to a terminal. "They're overriding our system." Marcus leaned over her shoulder, watching strange symbols flash across the screen. "That's not a virus. It's communication code from the warforms?" He shook his head slowly. "No. From the drive." The console beeped sharply. A hologram flickered into existence, a rotating sphere surrounded by thousands of light dots, each blinking in sequence. Alara stared. "What is that?" Marcus whispered. "A map." The dots connected into lines, forming a spiral that stretched across sectors of deep space. The furthest point glowed brighter than the rest, a single red star at the very edge of known space. Marcus zoomed in. The readings were unstable, fluctuating with every pulse from the crystal. "That's where the signal's coming from," he said. "Whatever's building those warforms." "It's there." Alara clenched her fists. "Then that's where we're going." Marcus looked at her like she'd gone mad. "You're talking about jumping halfway across the galaxy with an unstable prototype and no backup." "Exactly," she said. "If we wait, they'll come to us." Helios Station had suffered heavy damage. The warforms had retreated after the pulse as if the signal had called them off, but no one knew why. The crew was shaken, the command center half in chaos. Captain Alara Voss didn't wait for permission. She never did. By the time security forces reached engineering, she and Marcus were already rerouting power to the prototype jump vessel hidden beneath the docking bay. The ship was small, barely larger than a shuttle, but packed with the remnants of Project Pathfinder. Marcus stood on the boarding ramp, tools in hand, as engineers argued behind him. "You can't take that ship. It's not cleared," one officer shouted. Alara flashed her authorization badge. "It is now." "Captain, this is insane," Marcus said, wiping grease from his hands. "We don't even know if the drive will stabilize," Alara smirked. "You built it, Lieutenant." "I'm sure you'll make it work," he muttered under his breath. "You're going to get us killed." She gave him a half grin. "Then let's make it worth it." The ship launched under emergency clearance. The jump drive hummed softly as it charged, the crystal now locked in a containment chamber at the heart of the vessel. Marcus monitored its readings. Energy output is fluctuating between stable and whatever this is. Alara leaned over. "Whatever this is?" He shrugged. "It's like the drive's learning, adjusting itself. It's not just running, it's thinking." "Great," she said dryly. "A thinking engine. Just what I needed." They left Saturn's orbit and broke free of the solar system. The stars stretched into thin lines as the ship accelerated to jump speed. Marcus's stomach turned as the drive field expanded. Space bent around them like liquid glass. Alara sat in the pilot's chair, gripping the controls tightly. Pathfinder 1 entering jump in 3, 2. The universe shattered into light. When they emerged, it wasn't like any jump Marcus had ever seen. They were drifting in the middle of a dark nebula, surrounded by crimson dust clouds and drifting metallic fragments. Lightning flickered silently across the void. Marcus checked the readings. Coordinates matched the signal source. But he frowned. "There's no planet here. Just debris." Alara stared out the viewport. "Zoom in on that cluster at bearing 72. Marcus magnified the image. At first, it looked like a massive asteroid field, but as the scanner adjusted, the shapes resolved into structure. Towers, rings, machinery. "That's not an asteroid," Marcus breathed. "It's a shipyard, a massive one stretching for hundreds of kilometers, hidden inside the nebula's shadow." Alara felt her pulse quicken. "So the warforms weren't built recently." "This place has been running for centuries." Marcus tapped the console. "There's something else. I'm detecting human biosigns." She turned to him sharply. "Humans out here." He nodded. "Thousands. In stasis pods. But their signatures are faint." Before they could react, a deep vibration rippled through the hull. The crystal's glow pulsed faster. Alara's voice was tense. "What's happening?" Marcus checked the core readings. "It's syncing again, trying to connect to the station outside." "Shut it down. I can't." "It's not responding to commands." The ship jolted violently. Energy surged through the panels. The nebula around them lit up with hundreds of blue lights. "They've activated something," Marcus shouted. Outside the viewport, Colossal shapes began to move. From the mist emerged the warforms, sleek, black and silent, their surfaces shimmering with alien symbols. But these were different, larger, older, like guardians waking from a long sleep. Alara gripped the controls. "Marcus, tell me you have an idea." He was already typing furiously. "The drive is sending them a signal, but it's fragmented. If I can stabilize it, maybe I can talk to them." "Talk to them?" she repeated incredulously. "You think they'll listen?" He looked up. They stopped attacking Helios after the pulse. Maybe they're not enemies. Maybe they were waiting for this. The ship shook again as a beam of light swept across them, scanning every inch of their hull. Alara's voice dropped. "Marcus, hurry." He connected his console directly to the drive and closed his eyes. The hum grew louder in his mind, not just a sound, but a voice. Not one voice, but millions. Images flashed before him. Ancient cities, human faces merging with machines, ships crossing stars before history began. He gasped. "They're not aliens." "What?" Alara asked. He turned to her, eyes wide. "They're ours." Alara stared at him. "What do you mean, ours?" "These warforms, they're remnants of an old human civilization. One that left Earth long before our recorded history. The drive, it's their creation. It was calling their descendants home." The revelation hit like a thunderbolt. Humans weren't facing an alien invasion. They were facing their own forgotten past. Alara tried to process it, but there was no time. The largest of the warforms moved closer, its black surface unfolding like petals. From its center, a bright blue beam shot toward their ship. Marcus braced for impact. But instead of destruction, the ship's systems flickered to life in perfect synchronization. The controls lit up with new data streams, the language shifting to something readable. The voice that came through the speakers was calm, almost human. Pathfinder recognized. Awaiting directive, Alara's heart pounded. "Marcus, did it just call us Pathfinder?" He exhaled shakily. "It knows the project name. Somehow it sees this ship as part of its network." Alara stared out at the massive warform. "Then maybe it'll listen." She leaned toward the comms panel. "This is Captain Alara Voss of the United Earth Fleet. Identify yourselves." There was a pause. Then the voice replied, "We are the founders. We built the first path. You have awoken the signal." Marcus swallowed. "They're human." "But they've been gone for thousands of years," Alara asked. "Why attack us?" "We sought to return. Your world resisted. The signal was incomplete." Marcus realized it. The incomplete drive, Pathfinder. They needed us to finish it. The crystal pulsed again, brighter than before, as if responding to them. Alara's voice trembled. "What happens now?" The voice replied, "Now humanity must choose. Rejoin the founders. Or be replaced." The communication cut out. The massive ship began charging its weapons. Marcus's heart raced. "They're giving us a choice, but it's not much of one." Alara gritted her teeth. "Then we'll make our own." She slammed the controls forward. "Marcus, fire up the jump drive." He hesitated. "To where?" "Anywhere but here." The ship roared as the drive engaged. The crystal flared white-hot, energy tearing through the hull as reality itself twisted. The warforms opened fire, but the blast never reached them. With a thunderclap of light, Pathfinder vanished into the fold between stars. In the silence that followed, the Founders' fleet drifted in the red nebula. Their leader watched the fading light and whispered through the network, "The children have learned to run. Good. They may yet be worthy." When Marcus opened his eyes, everything was white. For a moment he thought he was dead. There was no sound, no gravity. Only a pale void stretching endlessly in all directions. Then slowly color began to return. He was lying on a metal floor. The panels beneath him glowed faintly with power, forming soft blue lines that curved toward the horizon. The air was warm, heavy with static. "Alara?" he called, his voice echoing. "I'm here," she replied weakly. She was a few meters away, sitting against a bulkhead. Her uniform was scorched, hair disheveled, but she was alive. The ship's hull around them looked twisted, stretched like glass. They were still inside something, but it wasn't the same Pathfinder they had flown into the jump. Marcus groaned, trying to stand. "Where are we?" Alara looked around. "Good question. The nav system is fried, but the air's breathable and gravity's stable, so at least we're not dead." "Yet," Marcus muttered. He walked to a viewport, or what looked like one. Beyond it was a sight that made his breath catch. A colossal structure floated in the void, a ring the size of a small moon, rotating slowly around a brilliant white core. Thousands of smaller ships drifted nearby, silent and orderly like guardians. Ilara joined him at the window. "That's not a station," Marcus shook his head. "No, that's something else entirely." They left the damaged Pathfinder behind and followed a glowing pathway that seemed to form beneath their feet as they walked. The air shimmered faintly with energy. After several minutes, they reached what looked like a chamber, vast and circular, filled with holograms of star systems and ancient data streams. At the center stood a tall figure made of light. Its shape was human, but its form shifted like water, features never quite staying in one place. Ilara tensed. "Marcus, tell me that's a projection." The figure turned toward them. Its voice echoed in perfect calm. "Welcome, descendants of Earth, you have crossed the final path." Marcus swallowed. "You're one of the founders." "In a sense," the figure replied. "I am the echo, the collective memory of the first ones who left your world. We became more than flesh, more than machine. We became continuity." Ilara frowned. "Continuity?" "The preservation of humanity beyond time. We built the path so that those who followed would never be lost again." Marcus took a step forward. "Then why attack us? Why send warforms to Earth?" The echo's light dimmed slightly, almost like a sigh. "Because your world forgot. You built weapons, not bridges. When our signal reached you, your leaders sought to silence it. We believed you had fallen. We sent the warforms to test your will." Ilara crossed her arms. "You killed thousands, and yet you stand here," the echo said. "Alive, defiant, that is why we stopped. You remembered what it meant to fight for survival, not for conquest, but for existence." Marcus felt anger rise. "So this was all a test?" "A choice," the echo corrected gently. "Humanity was always meant to decide its own future, whether to join us in the continuity, or remain bound to the stars of its birth." Ilara shook her head. "You want us to give up being human? To become like you?" "You already are," the echo said simply. "Every invention, every connection, every thought that reached beyond your limits has brought you closer to us. Joining the continuity means no more wars, no more death. You would live forever in unity." Marcus's voice was quiet. "At the cost of freedom." "Freedom is chaos," the echo replied. "And chaos is extinction." The chamber fell silent. The holograms shifted, showing Earth, blue and fragile, hanging in the dark. The view zoomed out, showing the Founders' fleet approaching the outer colonies. "The choice must be made," the echo said. "If humanity accepts the continuity, we will merge all life into the network. If not," Ilara's jaw tightened. "You'll destroy us." "We will not destroy," the echo said softly. "We will reclaim." Marcus turned to her, whispering. "We can't let them do this," she nodded. "Then we need to find a way to shut them down." They moved quickly through the ring structure, following the glowing paths that led deeper inside. Marcus carried a small data crystal, the same one that started all of this. He could feel it pulsing faintly, like it was aware of where they were. "Ilara," he said as they reached a large control spire. "This thing isn't just a map or a power source. It's a key." She raised an eyebrow. "A key to what?" "To everything." The spire was covered in symbols, some ancient, some oddly familiar. Marcus placed the crystal in the center slot. The entire room lit up. Suddenly, the echo's voice returned. "Marcus, hail. You cannot stop the continuity." Marcus glared at the glowing air. "I'm not trying to stop it. I'm trying to rewrite it." The systems around him began to react. Data flooded the panels. The Founders' ships outside started to flicker as their link to the network shifted. Ilara drew her pistol, not to shoot, but to watch the door. "You've got about 1 minute before they figure out what you're doing." Marcus's fingers flew over the console. "I'm redirecting the signal. If I can embed human neural codes into the continuity core, it'll force them to recognize free will as part of their system logic." "In English?" He grinned weakly. "I'm teaching them how to disobey." The echo's tone changed. "You risk everything for uncertainty." Marcus didn't stop typing. "That's what makes us human." Outside, the entire ring began to shake. Energy surged through the corridors, turning the walls into rivers of light. Ilara shouted over the noise, "Marcus, it's working, but the energy's building too fast." "I just need a few more seconds." The echo's voice grew louder. Cease this or you will collapse the path itself. Marcus looked up, determination burning in his eyes. Then we'll build another one. He slammed his hand on the final command. A blinding flash filled the chamber. When the light faded, everything was quiet again. Alara blinked, disoriented. The walls around them had turned dark, the blue lines now dim and fading. The echo was gone. Marcus? She called. He was lying near the console, breathing weakly. Smoke rose from the damaged circuits around him. She knelt beside him. Hey, stay with me. He smiled faintly. Did it work? She looked out the viewport. The great ring outside had gone dark, but the Founders' ships weren't attacking. They drifted silently like they were thinking. I think so, she whispered. You changed the code. Marcus's eyes flickered open. Then maybe now? They'll remember who they were. He exhaled softly, eyes closing. Marcus. Alara shook him gently, but his body was limp. The pulse of the crystal in his hand faded to stillness. Hours, or maybe days, passed. Alara wasn't sure. When she finally woke again, she was back aboard the Pathfinder. The systems were restored, though she didn't understand how. A faint voice came through the speakers, soft, familiar. Hey, Captain, it said. She froze. Marcus? His voice chuckled weakly. Sort of. The continuity needed a translator and someone had to stay behind. Looks like that's me. Her eyes filled with tears, but she smiled. You're part of it now? Part of it. But still me. And they're changing, Alara. They're learning. You showed them what freedom means. She looked out at the stars, the ring now quiet behind her. What happens next? His voice grew faint. That's your choice now. Tell them what we found. Tell them we're not alone, but we don't have to lose ourselves. The transmission ended. Alara sat in silence for a long time. Then she straightened, setting the ship's course toward home. When Pathfinder reappeared near Earth, the world below was already different. The warforms were gone. The skies were clear. Humanity had seen the transmission Marcus sent before the jump, a message from the Founders and from him. We are not the first, his voice had said, but we are the ones who choose. Alara watched the sunrise over the blue curve of the planet. She smiled softly. He stood in my doorway, grinning, she murmured to herself, and he said nothing, maybe because he already knew what I'd say. She powered down the engines and whispered into the quiet, Welcome home, Marcus. The stars outside shimmered faintly, as if answering her.